Hi boys and girls. The last video I made was about Cinderella, a story a lot of you know about. Well, the story today is something similar, and it is called The Girl with the Red Slippers. The story of Cinderella originated in France, which on the map is right here. The story today originates in a place called Egypt, which is right here where the triangle is. If some of you like to look at a colorful map, this right here is Egypt, and then over here is France.
A long time ago in ancient Egypt, there lived a beautiful young girl called Rhodopis. Rhodopis was a slave. She had been born in Greece but had been kidnapped by pirates. The pirates had sold the young girl to a rich Egyptian merchant. Rhodopis now worked as a servant in his house. Because Rhodopis was from another land, she did not look like the other servants or her master. Whereas they had dark hair and dark eyes, she had golden curls and green eyes. No amount of brushing would straighten those curls. The other servants teased Rhodopis. They also made her work even harder than they did. She had to get up before the sun rose, and she had to work while the stars twinkled in the night sky. She cleaned her master's house. She baked bread. She washed her master's clothes. She sewed, and she even tended to the garden. Rhodopis lived a lonely life. The other servants wanted nothing to do with her, and her master, though kind, spent his time either sleeping in the warm sunshine or conducting business. Over time, the animals became her friends. Rhodopis chatted with the birds that nested in the lemon and lime trees that she tended. She told her troubles to the great white egrets, and she teased the red-tailed dragonflies. However, her best friend in the whole world was a hippopotamus. Whenever she went to the Nile River to wash her master's clothes, one particular hippo would come to the edge of the river. It would wallow in the water near her and keep her company while she worked. The hippo would look for her with its big round eyes. Its ears would flicker whenever she spoke. Sometimes they would play together. Rhodopis would splash water in the hippo's direction. The hippo would sink down under the water and then reappear close by. One day, while picking lemons from the lemon trees in the garden, Rhodopis heard music coming from her master's house. She placed her basket on the ground and began to dance to the music. She moved gracefully like a ballerina. Rhodopis danced in the warm sunshine. As she danced, her master woke up from a long nap. As he stretched and yawned, he looked around the garden. He spotted Rhodopis dancing to the music. Rhodopis moved so elegantly that her master watched her for quite some time. After a while, he thought to himself that this beautiful young girl who danced like a butterfly deserved some elegant shoes to adorn her bare feet. The next day, he went to his own shoemaker and asked him to make a pair of red silk dancing slippers. The soles of the slippers were to be made of the very finest leather. Several days later, the shoes arrived, and Rhodopis' master presented them to her as a gift. Rhodopis was speechless. Rhodopis loved her slippers. The other servants were jealous that she had been given such an exquisite gift. They treated her even more horribly than before. This made Rhodopis very sad. Whenever she could, she would cautiously sneak off into the garden, put on her red slippers, and dance. Quite often, she danced at night beneath the sparkling stars when everyone else was asleep. One day, Rhodopis' master was informed that the pharaoh, Amasis, had decided to hold a grand banquet at his royal palace in Memphis. All of his subjects were invited, even the servants. Rhodopis was so excited, however, she quickly learned that the other servants had no intention of letting her go. Instead, they gave her piles of laundry to do and warned her that it better be all done by the time they returned. As the servants prepared to depart, Rhodopis carried the huge pile of laundry down to the river. Rhodopis worked for several hours, washing and scrubbing the clothes. Her faithful friend, the hippo, kept her company. The hippo always cheered up Rhodopis, and so, after a while, Rhodopis' spirits were revived, and she began to play with the hippo. As Rhodopis cheerfully splashed the hippo, it suddenly moved to duck down beneath the water. Then it reappeared quite suddenly right beside Rhodopis. As the hippo lifted its large head, it created a wave of water that cascaded down upon Rhodopis. She was drenched. So, too, were her beautiful slippers. Rhodopis sighed and scratched the hippo's head. Then she took off her slippers and placed them on a rock to dry. After that, she continued with her work. She did not even stop to eat. After a long while, Rhodopis finished washing all the clothes. By now, her back and arms were aching, but she was happy to be done. Just as she was about to put on her red slippers, she had heard the flapping of wings. In an instant, one of her slippers was gone. From out of the darkening sky, a falcon had swooped down and stolen it. Rhodopis gasped out loud. She was certain that the falcon was actually the god Horus. It was a sign of something, but of what she did not know. There was nothing Rhodopis could do. She put her one remaining slipper in her pocket and returned to her master's house in her bare feet. Meanwhile, at the royal palace, an enormous crowd had gathered. The crowd was enjoying the festivities. Pharaoh Amasis looked on from his raised throne in the banquet hall. Although he was happy to see his subjects enjoying themselves, He preferred to go hunting. As Amasis did not have a wife or children, he spent most of his spare time hunting with his friends. As the day wore on, Amasis grew restless. He was just about to sneak away from the banquet when a great falcon swooped down and dropped a small red slipper at his feet. Amasis picked up the small slipper and stared at it. He was certain that the god Horus had sent him a message. Amasis thought for a while. Then he summoned his advisors. He had decided that the god Horus was telling him that the owner of the red slipper would be his wife. The banquet was halted, and an announcement was made that the pharaoh himself would search the land for the owner of the red slipper. The guests slowly began to leave. Now Rhodopis' master had already left the palace. He had gone off to take care of some business, and so he had not heard the announcement. His servants, however, had. Together they decided that they would not breathe a word to Rhodopis. As the weeks went by, the pharaoh scoured the land for his future wife. He searched by land and by water, but he was unsuccessful. At last, his search brought him by a royal barge to a region in the north part of his kingdom. Rhodopis was washing clothes in the river as the royal barge appeared in the distance. The other servants saw it too, and knew immediately what it meant. As the barge neared the bank of the river, the royal trumpeters sounded the pharaoh's arrival. Immediately, the servants ordered Rhodopis to hide herself in the reeds, as she was, they told her, too lowly a servant to be in the presence of a pharaoh. With the red slipper in one hand, Amasis stepped off the royal barge. Upon seeing the slipper, the female servants elbowed each other out of the way, all wanting to be the first to try it on. As this was happening, Rhodopis peeked out from the reeds. She wanted to see the pharaoh's face. As she peeked out, Amasis spotted her. He stared at the beautiful girl for several moments, and Rhodopis' heart skipped a beat. Amasis asked Rhodopis to step forward, and then he placed her tiny foot inside the red slipper. As he did so, it was clear to all that she was the owner of the slipper. The other servants were horrified that she would be the pharaoh's queen, but the master gave his blessing. Together, Amasis and Rhodopis sailed away on the royal barge, with its purple sails fluttering in the gentle breeze that blew across the Nile River. Behind the barge swam Rhodopis' best friend and honored wedding guest.
So let's reflect on the story a little bit before we compare it to Cinderella. How is Rhodopis treated by the other servants? Pretty poorly. They make her do a lot of extra things that she doesn't need to be doing. What gift does the master give Rhodopis? Beautiful red slippers. What must Rhodopis do while everyone else is at the banquet? She has to do piles and piles of laundry in the river. Remember that falcon that took the slipper from Rhodopis? Where did the falcon take it to? It was the banquet for the pharaoh. How does the pharaoh realize that Rhodopis is the owner of the red slipper? Remember, he searches all across the land until he gets to Rhodopis and has her try on the slipper and it fits. Now, what are the similarities between these two stories? I would say a lot. I would say that the main character is treated poorly by the people around her. She has to do a lot of work. There's a big party, and for some reason, she's not allowed to go. Both stories involve shoes and losing one, leaving one behind. When that slipper is found, the person, the man, searches all over to try to find the owner of the slipper because he believes that that is the person he's meant to be with. Now, can you think of some differences? I can. Of course, the main characters are named different things, and they're from different parts of the world. They are both treated poorly, but they're treated poorly by different people. Cinderella is treated poorly by her stepsisters and stepmother, and Rhodopis is treated poorly by someone else that's not in her family, the other servant. A pharaoh and a prince are kind of similar, kind of different. They're different type of shoes, a glass slipper and a red slipper. I wonder if there are any more differences that you can think of. All right, everyone, that concludes things for today. I will see you next time with another similar story, and then after that, we'll really take time to analyze what's going on and some of the words used and things. So thanks for learning with me, and I'll see you next time.